Fine. Okay. I'm alive. yourself comfortable. Good evening, everyone. I trust you've had a fruitful day. I do not say happy, though I hope it has been happy. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the Buddha, the Blessed Noble, and fully self-awakened one. So we're moving on now. We're going back to this character Vaccagotta. We met him before, earlier on, mainly to do with the thing about the fire. Anyway, you can revise that if you want. This last discourse really tells us how he got on, and he goes to see the Buddha. He's at the bamboo grove at the squirrel sanctuary in Rajagaha, which is now present-day Rajgir, which was the seat of Bimbisara, the king of Magadha, on the Ganges there. So he comes to the Buddha and he says, can you teach me in brief, can you teach me in brief what is wholesome and what is unwholesome? So the Buddha replies that he can do it both in brief and, of course, in detail. And then he says, listen closely. So he basically goes through what we already know, the 10 unwholesome actions. So greed is unwholesome. Now, this word greed, I've always thought it's better to think of it as acquisitiveness. So these are your 3 basic roots. So mistaking our identity for this human form, we obviously want to try and make ourselves happy. And that's when the acquisitiveness begins. The money, the people, the fame, the power, the holidays, and so on and so forth. And then there's the aversion, which, remember, includes both a dislike of, a hatred of, and also a fear of. Yeah. And of course, delusion. And out of these 3 basic dispositions of acquisitiveness, aversion, and delusion, we have wrongdoing. So the first 3 are to do with the body. So that's killing living beings. You can extend that to harming them for no good reason. Taking what is not freely given, and misconduct of sensual pleasures. So normally that's translated as sexual, but it has a much wider meaning of indulgence. So that's the body. Then there's speech, which is, of course, false speech, malicious speech. Malicious speech. Hold on, I've missed it here. Where am I? False speech. Malicious speech. It should be something else. Where are we? Oh yeah, abusive speech, and just gossip, just talking for talking's sake. So that's to do with speech. And then finally, to do with the mind, thinking, it's covetousness, wanting what other people have, all thoughts of ill will, and of course wrong view, wrong understanding, which takes us back to these 3 misunderstandings about impermanence, cause of suffering, this desire, and of course not self. So then the Buddha says that when somebody abandons all that, it's like the palm stump. So once you've cut the frothy bit at the top of a palm, it just doesn't grow again. That's it. All the taints are destroyed. So if you remember the taints, the oozings, the cankers, sense desire, the desire to keep becoming, wrong view. Sometimes ignorance is put with wrong view, but that seems to me just to double it, say the same thing really. So normally it's sense desire, becoming, wanting to continue to become, to create this constant self, this selfing, and this basic ignorance. So now Vaccagotta asks him a question, and it seems to be that he's wondering if the Buddha is the only one who's actually enlightened. So he's got all these monks, all these nuns, all these lay people, but is he the only one that's actually fully liberated? So he asks, he says, is there amongst your monks anyone who's entered and abide upon the deliverance of mind and the deliverance by wisdom? The deliverance by mind are the absorptions, and the deliverance by wisdom is through the vipassana or through the investigation of the three characteristics. That's the one that liberates you. And the Buddha replies, 100 or 200, 300, far more monks who, by realizing for themselves with direct knowledge here and now, enter upon and abide in the deliverance of mind and the deliverance by wisdom that are taintless with the destruction of the taints, the oozings. So first of all, Vacca wants to know, are there any monks who've been fully liberated? And the Buddha says, loads of them. And then he asks, what about the nuns? And the Buddha says, loads of them. And then he asks, is there one lay person clothed in white, leading a life of celibacy, who with the destruction of the 5 lower fetters will reappear spontaneously in the pure abodes, and there attain final nibbana without ever returning from that world? So here we're talking about the non-returner. So he's not asking if there are any fully liberated lay people. He's asking if there are any that have attained the third attainment. So remember, there's the stream entrant, the one who has that initial experience of nibbana. Then there's the once returner who has a deeper experience, which, as it were, undermines this greed and acquisitiveness and aversion. But the non-return is the one who's left the sensual life as a place to seek happiness. So he asks, is there any layman who's done that? And of course, the Buddha says, just so many, 100, 300, 400. And later on, he asks, is that the same of the women lay followers? And of course, he says, yes, there are hundreds of them. And then he asks, is there any one lay follower, one man lay follower, clothed in white, enjoying sensual pleasure, who carries out his instruction, responds to his advice, has gone beyond, become free of perplexity, gained intrepidity, and become independent of others in the teacher's dispensation? So this is somebody who is a stream entrant, got the first and the second. Okay, these people who've attained those 2 levels obviously still are committed to sensual pleasure as a place to find true happiness. So they're not fully liberated. And he says, well, there's hundreds of them too, and the same for the women. And what Vaccagotta then says, if only Master Gautama were accomplished in this Dharma, but no monks, and later on, no nuns, no lay men and no lay women, then this holy life would be deficient in that respect. But because Master Gautama and the bhikkhus are accomplished in this Dharma, the holy life is thus complete in that respect. So what Vaccagotta is saying is that having all these people around him, both monks, nuns, and lay people, who've attained like this, really substantiates the Buddha's teachings. And this, of course, then he says, you get the image, always gives a little image. Just as a river Ganges inclines towards the sea, slopes towards the sea, flows towards the sea, and extends all the way to the sea, so too Master Gautama's assembly, with its homeless ones and its householders, inclines towards Nibbana, slopes towards Nibbana, flows towards Nibbana, and extends all the way to Nibbana. So having said that, now Vaccagotta, although he's been coming to the Buddha for some time, has enough confidence to declare that he actually wants to take the robes. I go to Master Gautama for refuge, to the Dharma and the Sangha of bhikkhus. I would receive the going forth under Master Gautama I would receive the full admission. So he wants to become a monk. And then what the Buddha says is, well, anybody who's coming from another teacher, they have to go into a probation period of 4 months. But I recognize the individual differences in this matter. So what he's saying is, for you, Vaccagotta, you can come straight in. But Vaccagotta is humble enough to say, no, I will live on probation for 4 years. And at the end of 4 years, excuse me, he's on probation for 4 years, not months. Sorry, the probation is normally 4 months, but what Vaccagotta says is, I'll remain in probation for 4 years. And at the end of 4 years, if the bhikkhus are satisfied with me, let them give me the going forth and full admission to the bhikkhu state. And so now, not long after that, he goes to see the Buddha to teach the Dharma further. So he's been a monk, he's been in the order, as it were, as a Samanera for about 4 years. And the Buddha now gives him further developments to lead to the penetration of many elements. And what he does is, he gives him those types of instructions that lead to the 4th jhana and above. Now, at the point of 4th jhana, and this is what the Buddha sees in Vaccagotta, he's able to attain the powers, the higher powers. And I'm now moving on to number 77. We've also been here before with Sakula Yadin. And we're going to have a quick run through these abhinya, the higher powers. So the first one is the mind-made body. So these are normally very strange things to us with our very concrete scientific minds. So here, somebody can create another one of themselves, their body and mind. And it says, it gives many of an example, but one is, this is the sword, this is the scabbard. The sword is one, the scabbard is another. It is from the scabbard that the sword has been pulled out. And just as a man were to pull the snake out of its skin and think thus, this is the snake, this is the skin, and so on and so forth, my disciples, I have proclaimed to my disciples the way to create from this body another body, having a body, mind-made, with all its limbs, lacking no faculty. Now, in other words, that would be appearing in 2 different places as two different bodies. Now, you might say to yourself, well, of course, that's ridiculous. But I would encourage you to read a book about this wonderful Indian woman who was a teacher in the 70s, 80s. I think she died late last century. And her name was Dipama, D-I-P-A-M-A. And a book has been written about her by one of her students, Amy Schmidt. She was also a teacher of the people you know, like Sharon Salzberg and Joseph Goldstein, people like that. And she was a Mahasi devotee. So if you read that book, you'll see actually that she had that power. Now, the witnesses, so it's up to you, you see. What I say is keep these things on a back burner. You never know. Now, the second one is what we would know as astral traveling. And I know somebody who's done this, so for me, it's not absolutely impossible. But basically, it's the mental body which leaves the physical body, and that's happened to one or two of my meditators, one or two of my students. And that, of course, is a finer material than all this physical matter, you know, and therefore it can travel wherever it wants. It can go unhindered through enclosures, through mountains, dive in and out of the earth, and so on and so forth. So that's the second abhinya, that's the second power. The next one is the divine ear, whereby you can hear things which is not possible through the ordinary physical ear. The next one is to understand people's minds. Now, some of you who've been long distance and been with me through these talks might remember the story of the Jungian therapist at the Isle of Man who went to Burma, ended up visiting this old man in a monastery, old monk in a monastery, to be taught Buddhism, and they had a long conversation, 2 hours or so, and during that whole time, he never used the interpreter, and of course, he didn't speak a word of Burmese. So even that is possible too. Then there's the recollection of past lives. Now, in the Visuddhimagga, that's the path of purification by Buddhadasa. It's a big tome. I've mentioned it before. Instructions are given on how to do this. So what you do is you begin now and you go backwards onto your life, trying to remember as much as you can. And then you come forward, trying to remember as much as you can. And as all the memories come back to you, right to your birth, and you break through that barrier into the previous life. So there's actually a methodology that you can do if you want to find out what your past lives were. The next one is the divine eye. Now, the thing about the divine eye in terms of the Buddha was that that's what he saw upon enlightenment, upon his awakening. He saw all his past lives, yeah, but he, with his divine eye, with this divine eye, he was able to see that beings were moving from one realm to another, dependent on their moral decisions, upon their ethics. So this was a direct understanding by him of the importance of morality. And the final one, of course, the great opinion of them all, is the destruction of the taints. That's the biggest of all powers, the destruction of the taints. And that, of course, is a sign that somebody is liberated from all suffering. Now, the one thing you'll notice that's not included in this list is healing, which is interesting, isn't it? Don't ask me why. There's also another book that you might be interested in called The End of Materialism by Taft, T-A-F-T. And in it, there are all these experiments. The one I remember is being down in a submarine, way down there, where there is no electromagnetic signal whatsoever, and the ability to have that extrasensory perception about what was going on, or readings telling people what was going on now in the world elsewhere. So that's 2 books there, Deepa Ma by Amy Schmidt and End of Materialism, if you're interested. Now, actually, if you were to give me a choice, if you were to say, would you have any of these powers, or would you prefer to compose a Beethoven symphony, or a Shakespearean play, or a Dante-esque poem, I think I'd go for those rather than all these wonderful powers. But then that's just me. So now we go back to Vaccagotta and find out what happened to him. So, of course, he does develop all these powers. Dwelling, before long, dwelling alone, withdrawn, diligent, ardent, and resolute, the venerable Vaccagotta, by realizing for himself with direct knowledge, here and now entered upon and abided in that supreme goal of the holy life, for the sake of which clansmen rightly go forth from home life into homelessness. He directly knew birth is destroyed, the holy life has been lived, what had to be done has been done. There is no more coming into any state of becoming. And the venerable Vaccagotta became one of the arahats. Isn't that a lovely ending? Now, then he sees these venerable ones on their way somewhere, and he asks them where they're going. He says, we're going to see the Blessed One. And he tells them, say to the Blessed One, the Blessed One has been worshipped by me. The Blessed One has been worshipped by me. In other words, I have followed your directions to the end. Now, when the bhikkhus say that to the Buddha replies, having encompassed his mind with my own mind, I already knew of the Bhikkhu Vaccagotta. The Bhikkhu Vaccagotta has attained the threefold true knowledge and has great supernormal power and might. The threefold knowledge is, of course, past lives, seeing how karma works out for other beings, and liberation, or the cleansing totally of those taints, those oozings. And the Buddha says, the deities also told me, the Vaccagotta has attained the threefold true knowledge and has great supernormal power and might. That is what the Blessed One said. Those bhikkhus were satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words. So a little bit of magic tonight. I can only hope that this in some way is inspiring for you, and that you will continue full steam ahead until you are completely liberated sooner rather than later. Bodang Pujami Dhammang Pujami Sangham Pujami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Buddhang Saranang Gacchami, Dhammang Saranang Gacchami, Sanghang Saranang Gacchami, Dutiyampi Buddhang Saranang Gacchami, Dutiyampi Dhammang Saranang Gacchami, Dutiyampi Sanghang Saranang Gacchami, Tatiyampi Buddhang Saranang Gacchami, Tatiyampi Dhammang Saranang Gacchami, Tatiyampi Sanghang Saranang Gacchami. Panati Pata Veramani Sikapadang Samadhiyami. Adina Dana Veramani Sikapadang Samadhiyami. Kame Sumi Chachara Veramani Sikapadang Samadhiyami. Musawada Veramani Sikapadang Samadhiyami. Sura Mereya Majja Pamadatana Veramani Sikapadang Samadhiyami. So making sure that our body is the expression of the awakened one. Using those muscles in the lower back and the abdomen, lifting ourselves up the spine, sitting tall. A moment's relaxation, the brow, and the jaw, shoulders, just acknowledging the posture, energized up the spine, everything else relax. This body is subject to disease. This body is of a nature to fall ill. This body has not gone beyond sickness. This body is subject to aging. This body has not gone beyond aging. This body is now in a process of aging. This body is subject to death. This body has not gone beyond death. This body will die. There is the unborn, undying, uncreated, uncompounded. The unconditioned, true refuge, harbor, and home. Perfect peace and contentment. Those who are mindful are in the presence of Nibbana. Settling on the breath and then opening up to whatever draws the attention within that field of awareness. Just watching, just feeling, just experiencing. Intimately, it's enough. A moment's reflection. Resolution. So make sure you're sitting comfortably for our evening contemplations. Turning to our own hearts, speaking gently, may I be free of physical pain. May I be free of mental distress. May I be liberated of all my sufferings. Bringing to mind someone we know is having a hard time. May you be free of physical pain. May you be free of mental distress. May you be liberated of all your sufferings. And for all those at this moment who are sick and or suffering from mental illness, people in the process of dying, and those who have died and left grieving family, relatives, and friends, people going hungry, homeless, and destitute, those having to deal with severe personal and interpersonal difficulties, all those who've been victims of prejudice, all those caught up in wars and repressive regimes, and those being tortured. And there are those suffering from natural disasters and climate crisis. All the sentient beings are being cruelly treated and unnecessarily slaughtered, and all who find life meaningless. May you be free of physical pain. May you be free of mental distress. May you be liberated of all your sufferings. Radiating our care and compassion to all beings in all directions. May all beings be free of physical pain. May all beings be free of mental distress. May all beings be liberated of all their sufferings. Bringing to mind now some moments of joyfulness, happiness that we've experienced today. And rejoicing in that. May I be joyful. May I be ever more joyful. May I experience the bliss of liberation. Bringing to mind someone we know who has good cause to be joyful. And wish them greater joy. May you be joyful. May you be ever more joyful. May you experience the bliss of awakening. And that all those at this moment who are happy and content with their lives, who are enjoying the warmth of all levels of friendship, enjoying the delights of art, nature, sport, hobbies, and so on, who find their work meaningful, who enjoy the fruitfulness of their spiritual practice, and who rejoice in the success of others. May you be joyful. May you be ever more joyful. May you experience the bliss of Nibbana. Radiating our joy to all beings in all directions. May all beings be joyful. May all beings be ever more joyful. May all beings experience the bliss of Nibbana. Allowing these words to flow through us. If you are wise and want to reach the state of peace, then develop these qualities. Be upright, responsible, gentle, and humble. Be easily contented and need only a few things. Be less busy and live simply. Guard the senses and be modest. Do not be attached to only a few people to the exclusion of others. Do not do the slightest thing that a wise person could blame you for. And be constantly thinking, may all beings be happy. Whatever living beings there are, be they weak or strong, big or small, large or slender, living nearby or far away, those who've already been born and those who've yet to be born. May all beings, without exception, be happy. Let no one deceive another or disdain anyone. Do not wish harm to anyone, not even when you're angry. Just as a mother would protect her only child at the risk of her own life, let the warmth of your heart go out to all beings. Let your love and goodwill spread throughout the whole world, above and below, without boundary, ill will, or hatred. Whether you are standing, walking, sitting, or lying down, so long as you are awake, you should develop this affectionate mindfulness. This, they say, is the noblest way to live. And if you do not fall into unskillful ways, but live well and develop insight, and are no longer attached to all the desires of the senses, then truly you will never need to be reborn into this world again. So feel free to join me in the chanting or offer these blessings. May you be safe, well, and happy. May you live contented in harmony with the world. Karaniyan gata kusalena yantan santang padanga bisamecha sakojucha sujucha suachocha samudu anatimani sandu sagocha subharocha apakichocha salaukawuti Santindryo cha nipako cha apakabo kulesu ananugido nachakudan samachare kenchi yena winyu pare upawadeyo sukino wake no hantu sabe sata bhavantu sukhitata Yeke pana bhutati tasawata wada wa ana wasesa diga wa ye mahanta wa majima rasa kanu katula dita wa ye wa adita ye chadure wa santi avidure Bhuta wa sambhavesi wa sabe sata bhavantu sukhitata naparo bharangni kubeta nati manyata kata chinenkenshi biaro sanna patiga sanya nanya manya sadukangicheya Mataya Taniyang Putang Ayusai Kaputang Ganurake Ewampi Sababute Sumana Sambhawaye Aparimana Metencha Sabalokas Mana Sambhawaye Aparimana Udanga Docha Tiriancha Asampatanga Veranga Sapatang Titan Charanesino wa Sayano wa Yavatasa Vigatamido Etan Satinga Diteya Brahmangedan Vihara Idamahu Ditincha Anupagama Sila wa Dasanena Sampano Kame suenayagedan nahi jatu gabasean punare titi. May all beings be happy. Sabe sata sukita hontu. Sabe sata sukita hontu. Sabe sata sukhita hontu sadhu sadhu sadhu. Very good. So don't forget, from now till we fall asleep is also part of our practice. Make it simple, take it easy, stay with the one who knows. Put something lovely in the heart, slip away into deep oblivion, only to wake to make the best of the day. May I wish you all a very peaceful night.